Why did we go to war? Because they had arms, weapons of mass destruction. We're over there, and we had to stop them. And then it was, huh?
Belts.
Belts and closed fist hits and everything. But also, not only weapons of mass destruction, but they were actually linked at first to 9/11. We were going to retaliate for 9/11. We bought that, but like I said, as information came out, things changed. Our reason for war changed, and everything changed. But it caused such a great fear. And we didn't let the facts lead us in making an informed decision. We just kind of went with it. Kind of made us feel stupid after that, didn't it? So we justify what we do by saying, well, we did do good. Did we do good? You know, Baghdad only had electricity, and now it's like all over the place. Their houses aren't wired for it, but still, it's all over the place. You can get wired in, you can have electricity somewhere else. And Saddam and his sons were kind of horrible people. That's for sure. His sons, you know, and I felt a little guilty because remember how they got killed? You caught them up in that thing and shot them all up. And, you know, I said, wow, all the stuff they did, that was pretty bad. I was emotionally attached to that because when we got them, I was like, yeah! But really, that wasn't the, yeah, they were bad. Not only were they bad when we got them, they were actually bad when we put them in power over there. They were bad then. That didn't change. We were so poorly differentiated. That's how we were. America, that's a societal thing. America was that way. Because first, we could not believe something happened in our lifetime. I mean, you could imagine a little bit of what Pearl Harbor was like from our 9/11. It was the same thing. You mean they shot something over here? How dare them? We got to get them. But look at the difference in the wars, because when Pearl Harbor was attacked in World War II, I mean, we had a clear, present villain that everybody was united in stopping, and they did. Versus us going to war by ourselves with like some monkeys from, where were the monkeys from? You guys are not good on your world. There was a country, the countries that were helping us fight, Bangladesh helped us fight, and they had some, couple like 5 soldiers, and somebody else jumped in and gave us these monkeys. And the monkeys were, I forgot, Morocco, I think? Well, somebody gave us monkeys, and what the monkeys were supposed to do was find mines. They were trained to find, you guys didn't read about that? You guys are just, leave current events alone then. Yes. Thought you knew, but yeah, so that was just going on. Anyway, so there was a big difference in the two. But anyway, that's the differentiation of self. And then there is emotional cutoff. This is the last one. An emotional cutoff, the concept of emotional cutoff describes people managing their unresolved emotional issues with parents, siblings, or other family members by reducing or totally cutting off emotional contact with them. Emotional contact can be reduced by people moving away from their family and rarely going home, or it can be reduced by people staying in physical contact with their families but avoiding sensitive issues. Relationships may look better, quote, if people cut off to manage them, but the problems are dormant and are not resolved. People reduce the tensions of family interaction by cutting off, but risk making their new relationships too important. For example, the more a man cuts off from his family of origin, the more he looks to his spouse, children, and friends to meet his needs. This makes him vulnerable to pressuring them to be certain ways for him or accommodating too much to their expectations of him out of fear of jeopardizing the relationship. New relationships are typically smooth at the beginning, but the patterns people are trying to escape eventually emerge and generate tensions. People who are cut off may try to stabilize their intimate relationships by creating substitute families in social and work relationships. This is why emotional cutoff is a problem. Because of course, the number one reason is it solves nothing. It's our convenient way of saying, well, I'll just stay away from them, or I'll stay away from that topic, and we'll just never talk about it again. In our family, one of those topics was actually salvation. Most of the Mayberry side of the family were not in the church, and when we would get together on certain holidays, we'd always get into a religious discussion. It's back in the 70s. And I was, kid, and I'm listening to the arguing, because it was arguing. There was no teaching. There were Bibles out and all that, but it was just pure arguing. And when we were talking about baptism, it wasn't essential and was it not, and all of that, and it always ended up in an argument, and we get mad and going home. We'd be playing with our cousins, and my mom would say, come on, we're leaving. And we would just go home. So it got to a point eventually where we just never talked about that. horrible. But also, my mom and dad were clubbing people in the head with, you got to do it this way, you got to do this, you got to do that. And they were just kind of giving kind of that, what you guys call that old world or old school or old world? Yeah, they were doing that. And so we sat and listened to the argument. And I remember thinking when I was about 11, man, this church stuff is for the birds. Why? Because I kept looking at that. And I saw that, and I didn't want to deal with it. Emotionally cut off. But that's what they did. So we stopped for a while going over there. Then when we eventually started going back, we just never talked about Bible. We didn't even pray before we ate. It was over. No religious stuff. We're not doing anything religious because it might start a conversation. We were emotionally cut off from that. We want to do that. But the sad part is that even within the family of origin, we can be that way. And you would see that kids, when they grow older, will just stop coming around. And they'll say, oh, I'm busy, or there's a lot of stuff going on. Oh, no, there's some issues that they're trying to process. And they don't want to deal with them. I'll tell you, one of the hardest things is for our generation now to talk to our parents before about how they parented us. You want to have an argument? Try it. If you say, Mom, do you think we really should have got those many whippings? Or, what do you think about that? You immediately evoke, at least in my family, my mother would quickly get up defensive and say, we did the best we could. We gave you guys everything we could do. And you guys just saw things we did. They would start with that. So we just don't talk about it. But we learn things, we do things quite different, It wasn't out of the ordinary for my mother to say a few choice words at us, She had little names that we'd be called, negative, just because she'd be angry, because we didn't do something we should have done. And so we grew up like that. So to talk about it now, oh boy, that would be the largest argument on the planet. Can't talk about that. But we should. That's how we learn from our mistakes. If not, we just end up, doing the same thing.
I think with the Lord in your life and everything, you can talk about those things and you can heal and learn from those things.
Well, and you need to, but most people don't, because the same reasons why, like I said, I'm one of those parents that I don't think that my kids can challenge me in anything. Like they can't challenge my authority, even if they didn't do exactly what I said right then and there. I don't look at that as a challenge to my authority, and we actually have a conversation about it. But never does it go to, you challenge my authority. They can't challenge me in anything. I would win. On every level. There's nothing they can beat me at. I would win.
That doesn't mean you have a challenge. That just means you succeeded. If I say I challenge you to chess, but I know you're a chess master, does that mean I didn't challenge you?
Yeah.
No.
Depends on the perspective. You might say, yeah, I did challenge you, and I may laugh and go, you didn't. Unless you beat me. Then I guess I'd have to say I was challenged. But it's the mindset is what I'm talking about, not the actual act. It's the mindset. How would I view that? I can't be challenged by my kids. How? You're too inferior to me.
That's when they get older.
Well, especially then. But the idea is to actually be challenged or threatened. I'm more worried now about my presence, as big as I am, in dealing with them. Because the last thing I would want them to be is afraid of me. But I would want them to know I'm here to help. And so they're at the age now where sometimes and the hardest part is to let them make a mistake. Because, well, I told you. So I make sure they know they were told. And then once they make the mistake, then we talk about it. And when we talk about it, it's not a, aha, see, I told you. But it is a, what'd you learn from that? Was that the outcome that you wanted? And if it's not the outcome that you want, well, what do you think you should do to, I never have to say, well, see, now that's what I told you, and you should just did exactly what I said. Never need to say that because it's kind of obvious. At first, their thought was, and their avoidance of the conversation with me, because they expected me to say, aha, I told you, especially when it happens exactly the way I said. My son asked me, Dad, how'd you know it was going to happen like that? I said, son, I'm 30 years older than you. I should know a little bit more, just a little bit. But I'm 30 years older. Some of that I should know. I said, but we all make mistakes. The idea is I want him to begin processing things for when I'm not there. When I'm not there to say or to see it, and he's away at school or doing something, or just understanding the dynamics that are there, that he processes it the same way. So I am hoping, and there's no magic way that this is the way to do it, no, there's no other way to do it. But I'm processing it this way so that when we have those after-the-fact talks, that he begins to have those before he does the thing wrong. On his own. Like in his mind, there's here's my little voice or something in there saying, well, now you probably should do that, or that's really not the way to go. But he's processing it. I want him to